For our first project today, I purchased a Fireplace bellows on Whatnot, and I have always wanted to give one a makeover. I decided to take out my St. Wen transfer booklet from IOD's 2026 spring release. I actually have two of these books. One is just about used up, so I picked up a second because I love this so much. I want to keep this bellows natural. I'm not going to paint it. And so I have my design here and I wanted to add it right to the front. And my original plan was to separate the transfer, which is what you see me doing here, and have the florals tuck slightly underneath the medallion, like on each side. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but I soon realized I hadn't really thought it through because the portion hidden under the medallion wasn't going to transfer over properly. And if I tried to pull the transfer sheet out afterward, it would likely damage the design. And I actually considered using like a sharp craft knife to trim around the medallion, but I was worried I'd accidentally cut into the bellows. The funny thing is, I didn't realize any of this until I had almost the entire transfer applied, well, at least one section. So at that point, I decided the easiest solution would be to remove the medallion altogether. The little tacks holding it into place were, I guess they're kind of like upholstery tacks, and they popped right out, like no trouble at all. So I was relieved there. I got it removed and I noticed it was pretty dirty underneath. So I just took a little bit of cleaner and a cloth and just wiped it back. It cleaned up really easy. But this little bit that I didn't clean up, it transferred over fine. So, I mean, that little bit wasn't clean, but it's all good. I was able to finish applying the transfer, line everything back up, and I decided to leave the medallion off and let that gorgeous transfer shine. But don't worry, I will definitely find some other way to use it in another project someday. My transfer's on, but I have little bits and I don't like them to go to waste. As you can see, there were just a few little pieces left over from the bouquet, so I'm just going to tuck those back into the design, just rubbing and just pulling back, and they blend right in. And I had another piece that I trimmed off earlier, so I decided to add that near the bottom of the bellows. It almost looks like the florals are creeping upward. I think it just helps carry the design throughout. No pieces go to waste, and it just feels a little more intentional. And then I'm going to add one more piece out of that transfer design and add that right up to the top. And you can see there's one to the left. I'll save that for later. Next, I pulled out my IOD gilded transfer called Etiquette. If you're thinking about trying gilded transfers, I think this is a wonderful one to start with. I'm not exactly sure when this one was released, but it's filled full of beautiful designs and decorative elements and typography. It's just one of those transfer booklets that's just so incredibly versatile, and I love it, and I think that you'll love it too. One thing to know when working with gilded transfers is that you don't need to use a heavy hand. Just go light, take your time, and focus on rubbing over the design itself rather than directly over the gold. If you do that, you really shouldn't have any issues at all. As I'm lifting on my transfer, I am paying attention to make sure that it is indeed transferring over. If the back is transparent, we're good. And I just go back and forth between looking at my substrate and then looking at the transfer sheet itself. And you can tell if it's not transferring over lay it back down, and just go over that section a little bit more and check again. These do take a little bit longer than regular transfers, but in my opinion, they're absolutely worth the extra time. The gold detailing is just so beautiful and adds so much elegance to this piece. Off camera, I spray sealed it with some clear matte sealer, and this is my finished bellows. I absolutely love how this turned out, and the St. Wen transfer is just so beautiful, and the gold details, chef's kiss. I love it. I'm actually glad that I decided to leave the medallion off because it just really allows the transfers to shine. This was such a simple makeover, but I think it completely transformed the piece while still keeping all its vintage charm. What do you think of this? For our second project, I found this vintage dustpan at an antique yard sale, and honestly, I don't think it needs much. I pulled out my Midnight Rose transfer from Redesign and chose some floral elements that I thought would complement this dustpan perfectly. And I had already cleaned the piece, but before applying the transfer, I just gave it one last little dusting with my hand here, and then went right in with rubbing and pulling back on that transfer. I'm going to speed things up a little bit here so I'm not making you sit and watch me apply all these transfers. I'll let you watch as I piece the design together, pulling different elements from the transfer book and layering them until I get the look that I'm after. Sometimes I like to start with like one focal point and then build around it. And where this is just such a small project, it's really not going to take much to bring it all together. But I'm pretty sure most of you already, use transfers or are comfortable with them. But if not, just let me know in the comments. I am always happy to share tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. And if I don't know the answer, I usually know someone who does, and we'll just figure it out together. I'm adding another transfer. This is Redesign's Gilded Memories H2O transfer. Spritz your substrate with water. Set your transfer down, gray side up. Wet it again. Press a damp cloth into it until it's nice and wet, and then gently pull back. And you have your beautiful gilded transfer. I love these H2O transfers. They are so fun. I added a little bit of dark oil wax over this and a little bit of my vintage antiquing paste and just buffed it out. And I think this vintage dustpan is so beautiful. I love the natural rust. I want to know, would you make one of these over, and how would you style it in your home? For our last project, I got this wooden stool, and I'm going to paint it the color Gumdrop, and that is by Sweet Pickins. Mix it a 1-to-1 ratio, let it sit for 10 minutes, and then just go right in and start painting. Now, this color came in my Sonnets Makers box, and honestly, I was a little bit intimidated by it. It's not a color I would normally reach for, but I figured it was time to step outside my comfort zone. So I did. I applied 2 coats. Before I started painting, I gave it a really good cleaning. It was quite filthy. Let it dry and then went right in with my milk paint. Now that it's dry, I pulled out this paper that also came in my box, and I decided not to go quite halfway because I'm going to go in with some transfers, and I just wanted a little bit more of that wood exposed. So I'm going to tear all along the sides and then all along the center. That way it will have more of a softer transition. I have my decoupage varnish and glue by Pentar, and I'm adding that right to the surface, and then along the edges here I want to make sure that those are down nicely, and just continue that until my paper is fully adhered. And I take out my water mister and my damp rag. That helps a little bit. and it helps that paper stretch and smooth out. And once I have my paper on, I'm going to go right back over it with more of that decoupage varnish and glue. For my transfers, I'm using the Rosy Nest. These are by Redesign. I've had these in my stash for quite some time, and I had the worst time transferring these. And I typically do have a little bit of a struggle with their transfers, but these are rather old. I've had them in my stash for quite some time, and it's also not a sealed surface. So I have a few things working against me, but I did get them down with lots of struggle. And then I just sanded around the sides so they're nice and smooth. And I love how, like, you can still see the dents and stuff in the wood and the wear. Oh, it's just so perfect. At this point, I wasn't going to add any more transfers because of the struggle, but I decided to add that bird. And then this is one of IOD's transfers. I think it's from Traditional Pot. It is from Traditional Pots. And then sealed it all in with some more decoupage varnish and glue. Then the next day, I took my sandpaper. It's 800 grit, nothing too heavy, and just lightly went over my paper and my transfers, and then added more of a heavy hand in the blank areas and just took off plenty of paint down to the wood. Not too much, just a little bit, so it adds to that worn look. And then went over the whole thing with Sweet Pickins dark oil wax, and this is just going to add some more age to the piece. And I'm going to do the bottom and the legs and just let that sit for about 10 minutes. I wiped it all back and then took my vintage antiquing paste and went over the sides and just some areas here and there. And that's it for this little stool. I have to say, I absolutely love how this turned out. I know I was a little bit hesitant about the color and the paper at first, but they've completely won me over. In fact, now I'm looking around my craft room, trying to figure out what else I can do with these papers. And my bellows and my dustpan, oh, I love them all. Let me know in the comments. As always, if you like this video, you know what to do. Hype me up if you loved it, and leave me a comment down below. You know I love chatting it up with you. And don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss another video from me. Thank you for spending time with me today. Until the next one, bye.